Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Haves and the Have-Nots review. I watched the show on Wednesday. Didn't get a chance to do the review because yesterday was my mom's birthday, and we celebrated that, and so I didn't have time to do it. So here it is now. So let me just cue up my notes, and we'll get started. So, the police officer that came over to Catherine's house, once Hanna explained to her that she had power of attorney and that it was all legit, and David looked over the papers, and lo and behold, it was legit. Um, so the police officer said, "This is a civil matter. You'll have to deal with this on your own." So she left, and Hannah just said, I'm leaving here with all this paperwork." And Hannah is not afraid of Jim or David, and she was just stood strong, and I like that part. And of course, Jim is all kinds of angry and saying a bunch of stuff, and he goes down there to the jail um, to chew Catherine out about giving Hannah power of attorney, and he's saying, "Well, Hannah is gonna screw you over," and I'm like, "Nope, Hannah's not that kind of person." And Catherine says, "No, she won't." And then Jim's just going to demand that Catherine give him power of attorney. I'm like, wait a minute, Jim, you don't have any money. You rely on Catherine. We heard some seasons ago that basically all of his money he earned from being a judge was gone. So he can't demand anything because he's at Catherine's mercy when it comes to money. Um, and he's going on, and he's just so angry. And then he's saying that he's gonna make Hannah give him control. And Catherine just says she before she leaves, she's like, you better be careful. You better watch out, cause Hannah has whooped you before. And one of the best scenes was when Hannah and Candace beat up Jim, and it was not a light beating either. They beat him down to the ground like he was on the streets. They did it indoors, but they beat him down. That was a street beating, and that was one of the best scenes of the series. So let's just stick with Jim and all this mess. So he goes back to the house, and he's talking to excuse me. He's talking to Catherine's financial guys, the crooks who are trying to rip her off. And so he wants to get a $500,000 loan, and he can't do that. He has to ask Hanna for to sign on for that. And of course, he doesn't like that, but he can't get a loan on his own because he's made bad business deals, and he's a bad risk. So unless Hannah signs for that loan, he's not getting a dime. So I'm just gonna go through and stick with go through each storyline individually and talk about it that way, so I don't drag the video on too much. So back at the jail, Catherine, she meets up with this other inmate. There's another inmate that is brought in, and she's the other inmate, the new inmate. She's really upset because her kids were taken away by her husband, and the guy has friends in court, so he was able to take the kids and get her put in there. And it turns out Catherine knows the guy, and he built her hotel, and she agrees to help the girl. And it was, I think, she helped her because of course she was she needed, because the girl does need help. I mean, the guy's abusive and all that. From what I'm listening to what she was saying, the guy's abusive. And Catherine also helped her because I she said you look like my daughter. So I guess because she reminds her of Amanda, that gave her the incentive to listen to her and to help her. Sorry, I'm yawning. I got up early. And so Catherine says, "Yeah, I'll help you. I'll help you as soon as I get a phone call." Um, and that's right. Just this was just a minor detail when the guard got brought Catherine in to see Jim. She was talking about she said to him, "I should have you work for me," and he's like, "You couldn't afford me," and I'm like, "Catherine's got a lot of money. She could pay you more than the police department does." Unless he was talking about Malone money, but I'm pretty sure Catherine could pay him more than Malone money. But anyway, that was just a little detail that I want to talk about. So let's talk about Colby. So he climbs up there in the bed with Madison, and at first I think Madison thought it was Jeffrey, and um, once he figures out it's Colby, he tells him get out. And anyway, they get into talking about you know Colby's business being an escort, and Colby saying one of my Johns got a little rough. And and Madison's like, well, you need to quit. You paint, try that. And Colby's like, nobody wants to buy an artist's paintings until they're dead. I'm like, well, that kind of is true. And seems like Veronica might make that happen for Colby. Because she's really angry at him for, getting in her pool and stuff. And she's probably even more angry at him for, the way he talked to her. So Jeffrey shows up, and Madison has still got his arm draped around Colby and all that, and I guess it was not in a sexual way. He just still had his arm draped around him because they had been talking. And Jeffrey shows up, and Colby's saying, "Oh, he's jealous," and Jeffrey's like, "No, I'm good." And it just seemed like Jeffrey was feeling some kind of way. But anyway, um, Madison and Jeffrey start talking, and Jeffrey's saying basically he's afraid to get close to anybody because of his mother, and Madison saying you can't be afraid anymore. Um, so let's talk about Justin since this all ties together. So the mercenary, he comes over there to Justin's apartment, and of course Tanner is still messing with Jeffrey. He's like he wants to know all, not Jeffrey. I'm getting all the gay guys confused. Justin Tanner is in Justin's business. He's saying, well, if you're doing what I think you're doing, you're in big trouble. And I'm like, why do you care, Tanner? I mean, he's a grown man. You're a grown man. Why are you so obsessed with what Justin is doing? Anyway. So the mercenary, he comes over and he says Veronica wants to talk to. He tells Tanner that Veronica wants to talk to him, and Justin's like, no, don't talk to her. She's a bad person, and of course that just made Tanner want to talk to her even more. So Veronica gives Tanner a call, and she tells him to come to her house, uh, I'm wondering if she's gonna hit on Tanner too. I mean, he doesn't look like her type, but with Veronica, you never know. Um, so Justin tries to call Jeffrey. Of course, it's gone straight to voicemail, and he keeps saying, "Come on, Jeffrey, call me back." And I was thinking, well, why don't you just say on the message that your mother is up to something yet again? And let Jeffrey know that way, because he knows Jeffrey is not going to answer the phone, not after everything that has transpired between them. So, so Colby ends up answering Jeffrey's phone, and he's like, he's making all these smart comments, and finally, before he hangs up, he's like, "We're too busy having sex right now," and I'm like, that's really gonna set Justin off because he was like, "Oh, Jeffrey, what's going on? What are you doing?" and all that. So that's really gonna set Justin off. Anyway, so that was pretty much it with that. And so let me just get Veronica out the way. So the mercenary goes back over there and he's telling her, he's giving her more information about, the hit that's out on her and all of that. And I watched the show with my mom, and she was saying to me, what if the mercenary is the one that Jim hired to kill Veronica? Because you do notice he looks at Veronica kind of like, he, he looks at her kind of strange. And when you think about it, it's almost like he's biding his time and he's right there zeroing in on her. Um, so she may not succeed in getting Laura killed, as her decoy. So I don't know. And of course, she's still being like just a tramp and asking the mercenary what he looks like under those clothes, but he does not seem interested in taking off his clothes for her because he just leaves. And then she's talking smart and like, "Oh, I'm not afraid of you, Jim. I'm not afraid." And the way she's saying it's like she didn't laugh, but it was like, when somebody's nervous and the laugh, like, it's like she was trying to be smart but nervous at the same time. She's like, "I'm not stupid, blah blah blah," and I'm like, "Yeah, Veronica, I don't think you're as ahead of the game as you think you are." So, so let me just roll all this stuff together and get into Candace. So, Oliver, he calls up Gretchen. He's trying to get her to come over. She's at this bar drinking. She doesn't really want to come, and she refuses, but then she agrees. And then later on, um, Oliver tells Charles that Gretchen is coming over, and Charles says, "I don't want to see her." Then Oliver calls up Gretchen and says he don't want to see you, and she's like, "I'm already on my way. I'll just come over." So and basically Oliver had sort of threatened her. Well, if you don't, before when he initially talked to her, it's like, "Do you want me to tell my father to talk to your father about this and about not coming over?" But and then she agreed to come over after that. So all they're all tangled up in that political family stuff. So okay, so now we can get into Candace. So Candace, she's getting herself ready to go to dinner with Benny and Mitch, and so she's putting on her shoes, and Mitch is like, "Those are nice shoes," and that's how you know a man really likes a woman when he's saying those are nice shoes, because a straight man does not comment on a woman's shoes unless he really likes her. And he's trying to get on her good side, or he just likes her so much that he notices those little details. So we already know that Mitch really likes Candace, and he's complimenting her. She's like, Mitch, stop. And so Benny, he comes out the bathroom and he's dressed kind of like, like he just threw something on. I don't know. To go to the grocery store, Mitch is like, "This is what took so long." And so here comes Landon. He comes to the door, and I can't remember if Mitch and Landon had a scene before, but Mitch was like, he was trying to get out of there because Landon was obviously thirsty for him. And I can't remember if they had a scene before where Landon showed some thirst, but I think they might have. It's been a while, I'm not sure. So once Mitch and Benny leave, they just go on ahead of Candace, and she talks to Landon, and he's asking her, "Did you take the pregnancy test?" And um, and she says, "No, I didn't take it." And then She asks if Charles knows about the money. Landon says no, he doesn't. And she says, and if anything happens to the money, I'm going to go to the press. And, that's why Landon it really should stop pressing Candace, because Candace can blow up everything for Charles if she wants to. Candace can be, vindictive and vengeful when she wants to be. So, Charles, Landon better leave her alone, because everything Charles has worked for can go right out the window. And we know a couple of seasons ago or whatever, there was some people who wanted to trip him up because they did not like him. Um, so and then Landon, he's got to show some he's got to show some more thirst and all of that. And at first, he's all I think he said like screw your brother, as in like I think he meant like in the way like oh he can kick rocks like that. And he says no, and then he says, and he flips and he's like, no, I really would screw your brother. And that Malone man too. And he said Malone man, and that just sounded so funny because usually it seemed more like usually people don't will say like that Malone guy, if they're referencing somebody like that, if they don't know their whole name or whatever. But he was saying that Malone man, and that just sounded so funny to me. Anyway, Landon's thirst was funny. Um, and so we get to the end. Let me make sure I got everything. Yeah, I got everything. Uh, oh, wait a minute. I forgot that David went to see Vinny. And at first, Sandy didn't want to let him in. He said, Vinny isn't seeing anyone, but Vinny said, you know what, I'm here. Let me talk to him. So they go to the office, and David is messing around saying what he wants to say. And Vinny's like, I don't, stop this beating around the bush and say what you want to say. And he asked him, well, is it true that Candace and Benny are untouchable? And Vinny's like, well, where did that come from? And David's like, it was from Mitch. And I don't know if, I guess Mitch is going to have to deal with this one. Because he sort of like, he threatened Jim and was saying, leave Candace and Benny alone. And he said it with said it as if he was with the intent that he meant leave them alone, with the full force of the Malone family behind it. So let's get to the end. So Jim is in Hannah's bedroom, and she was changing her clothes and everything, and she walks out and she's like looking like what the, and I'm like, where is Benny when you need him? I mean, where is Benny when you need him? This is one time he needed to be around to knock Jim out, because Jim is pushing it. And I see I've run way over where I wanted to be with this video. Okay, so that was the show. Tell me what you thought. Like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you later. Bye.